What if the advice you've trusted your whole life is actually holding you back from improving at guitar? For decades, we've all heard the same thing. Keep practicing until it's perfect, and then you can move on. But after coaching thousands of players over 50, I've seen that chasing perfect actually slows your progress. So in this video, I'll reveal what the new motor learning research shows, and the simple change that makes learning guitar faster, easier, and a whole lot more fun, even if you've been stuck at the same place for months. Mark's been stuck on the F chord for weeks, practicing every night after dinner, but it still just doesn't sound clean. So he thinks to himself, I'll just keep practicing this part until I nail it, then I'll move on. That's what a good student should do, right? But after a few days of this, he starts to wonder, am I just too old for this? Maybe I'll never get it. Ever felt like Mark, practicing the same thing over and over, but never quite getting there? It's not just you. There's a growing body of science showing that the traditional way we try to master things, one step at a time perfectly before moving on, could actually be slowing down your progress. We think learning is like climbing stairs. Step 1, master the first thing. Step 2, move forward. Step 3, master the next thing. But researchers like Dr. Robert Bjork at UCLA have shown that real learning happens through what's called desirable difficulty, not by perfecting each step, but by staying in motion and wrestling with skills just outside your comfort zone. It looks like the long way, but it gets you there faster. That's what the new science is showing us about learning guitar. Dr. Bjork found that conditions that create challenges and induce more errors often enhance long-term retention and transfer. In other words, quick wins, not perfect reps. Think of it like a messy kitchen after baking. Chaos means you're actually creating something, because your brain builds connections through struggle, not mastery. So if you've been spinning your wheels, you're not stuck, you just need a new map. I've seen thousands of older beginners finally feel like real players, not from grinding, but from this simple change. Now, messy reps make sense in theory, but how do you actually practice messy instead of perfect? That's where the science gets really surprising. In one of the most famous motor learning studies, researchers Shea and Morgan split learners into two groups. One group drilled the same movement over and over. The other group rotated between different movements. On day 1, the drill group looked like absolute rock stars, but a week later, the rotation group left them in the dust. They remembered more and performed better. My student Linda tried grinding G to C for weeks to get it to lock in, but still blanked when it showed up in a song. Once she mixed it in with practicing other skills, it finally stuck. So what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, maybe on a Monday you touch G to C. Tuesday, you focus on strumming, and Wednesday, maybe a short lick. And by the end of the week, you've brushed against multiple skills without grinding any of them to death. After a few weeks, you notice that the core skills come to you faster and more naturally. It feels harder because you're moving on each day without feeling like you're mastering anything. But that's exactly why your brain wires it deeper. You're forcing it to recognize patterns in different contexts, which, as it turns out, is how you get skills to stick. Now, you might be thinking, if I'm jumping between chords, strumming, and licks without perfecting each thing, how am I supposed to actually remember any of it? Here's the good news. The kind of memory your hands use for movement, called procedural memory, stays strong for life. That's why even my 70-year-old students find that with messy, mixed practice, their fingers remembered things their brain thought it had actually forgotten. So the real question is, how can you use this at home in a way that not only makes you better, but makes guitar more fun too? Here's the part most players never hear. You don't need to master a song to get value from it. You just need to touch the right skills consistently over time. Take Friend of the Devil by the Grateful Dead. If I showed you the whole thing at once, you'd probably think to yourself, okay, this is way too much, I'm not ready. But here's the breakthrough. It's actually made up of the same 5 skills you'll use in other songs that you want to learn. So here's how you could turn it into a weekly routine. On Monday, just the picking pattern on a single string. That's it. Tuesday, add a tiny lick from the intro. Wednesday, touch on a short solo phrase, even if your fingers fumble. Thursday, try the rhythm of the verse progression. And Friday, explore different chord transitions, like a bass walk-up or a hammer-on in between chords. You're not going to reach perfection each day, and that's going to be very uncomfortable at first. But when you trust the process week after week, you'll start to see how your brain and hands start connecting the dots. Now, when I showed you that example of a weekly routine, you probably noticed it uses desirable difficulty. You're trying new things just outside your comfort level without getting it perfect before moving on to the next day. It uses spaced repetition and interleaving. touching different skills across the week instead of grinding one thing until it's perfect. And it uses muscle memory. Your hands learn by doing, not by waiting for perfection. That's why this works. It's not about drilling finger exercises, it's about keeping momentum with fun pieces of music. This is how you finally make progress, even if every other method has failed you. If you want to try this out for yourself, I've mapped out a week of bite-sized daily guitar challenges that follow this new science. Click the link in the description to join our 5-day Stop Dabbling, Start Playing Guitar challenge. It's totally free and it starts on Monday.